Jiwoo Park woke up at exactly 6:30 a.m., just as she did every school day. She didn't need an alarm. Her body clock was perfect, one of many things she had to hide. The morning sun filtered through her curtains as she sat up in bed. For a moment she allowed herself to be still, to feel the weight of another day of pretending ahead of her. Jiwoo, breakfast in 10 minutes, her mother called from downstairs. Coming, Jiwoo replied, making sure her voice sounded sleepy and human. She walked to the bathroom and stared at her reflection. The face looking back at her seemed normal enough. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. But without the special contacts she wore every day, her eyes would glow violet, revealing her true nature. Jiwoo was not human. She and her parents came from a planet orbiting a star that Earth scientists hadn't even named yet. They had lived on Earth for 16 years ever since Jiwoo was a baby. Their mission was simple: learn about humans by living among them without being discovered. She put in her contacts carefully, watching as the glow of her eyes dimmed to a normal brown. Next came the makeup. Not too much, just enough to look like an average teenage girl. She pinched her cheeks to add color, though her skin naturally had a slight shimmer that she had to dull with powder. Downstairs, her parents were already eating breakfast. They looked perfectly human too, their own eyes hidden behind contacts, their slightly too perfect posture now slouched in a convincing human way. Did you finish your history homework? Her father asked, sipping his coffee. He didn't need caffeine, none of them did, but he drank it every morning as part of their cover. Yes, Jiwoo said, picking at her rice. I made sure to get 2 answers wrong. Her mother nodded with approval. Good. Remember, being perfect draws attention. We can't afford attention. Jiwoo had heard this lecture her entire life. Don't run too fast. Don't lift anything too heavy. Don't answer every question correctly. Don't stand out. Don't be yourself. I know, Mom, she said, trying to keep the frustration out of her voice. Her father looked at her closely. Is everything okay? You seem different today, Jiwoo forced a smile. I'm fine. Just tired, but she wasn't fine. Last night she had watched a video online of a human girl giving a speech about being true to yourself. The girl had talked about the pain of hiding who you really are, about the freedom that comes with honesty. The words had hit Jiwoo hard. For 16 years she had been the perfect pretender, and she was tired of it. I should go, she said, grabbing her backpack. Don't want to be late. Her mother handed her a lunchbox. Remember, we have a community meeting tonight. The others want to discuss the new family that moved in last month. The others were the few of their kind also living on Earth, scattered around the globe. They met rarely but stayed in touch to maintain their cover story. I'll be home by 6, Jiwoo promised. The walk to Hambit Academy took exactly 12 minutes. Jiwoo could have run it in 2, but that would have been impossible to explain. So she walked slowly, like a normal human girl, watching other students make their way to school. Hambit Academy was a large school with over 1,000 students. It was easy to blend in there, to be just another face in the crowd. Jiwoo had chosen her friends carefully, nice enough kids who never asked too many questions or looked too closely. As she approached the school gates, she saw Do-hyun waving at her. He was in her class, always friendly, always smiling. Morning, Jiwoo, he called out. Usually she would smile back politely, say a quick hello, and keep walking. That was the safe response, the practiced response. But today something felt different. The weight of all those years of pretending suddenly felt too heavy to carry. Good morning, Do-hyun, she replied, but instead of looking away, she held his gaze. She looked directly into his eyes for several seconds longer than was comfortable. Do-hyun shifted his weight, clearly confused by the intensity of her stare. Did you do the math homework? I got stuck on problem 7. Yes, Jiwoo said, still looking at him. The answer is 3.4159. That's really exact, he said with a nervous laugh. Pi, she said simply. The answer is pi. She walked past him into the school building, feeling a small thrill. That wasn't how she usually acted. She would normally have said something vague like, I think I got around 3.1, or, it was pretty hard, right? The first class of the day was physics. Jiwoo sat in her usual seat in the middle row, not in front where eager students sat, not in back where troublemakers gathered. Just average, invisible Mr. Kim was explaining a problem about velocity and force. He wrote an equation on the board, but as Jiwoo watched, she noticed a mistake in his calculation. Normally, she would stay quiet. Even if she knew the right answer, she would let the error pass. That was the rule, never show how much you really know. But today, she raised her hand. Mr. Kim looked surprised. Jiwoo rarely participated in class discussions. Yes, Jiwoo? The equation is wrong, she said clearly. You've mixed up the variables. It should be force equals mass times acceleration, not the other way around. The classroom went quiet. Mr. Kim checked his work, then adjusted his glasses. You're right, he said, sounding impressed. Good catch, Jiwoo. A few students turned to look at her with surprise. Jiwoo Park correcting a teacher? That was new. In the next class, literature, they were discussing a famous poem. The teacher, Ms. Lee, asked if anyone could recite the first verse. Jiwoo's hand went up again. Jiwoo? Ms. Lee said, her eyebrows raised in surprise. I can recite the whole poem, Jiwoo said. Ms. Lee smiled. The whole thing? It's quite long. I know, Jiwoo said. Then she stood up and began to recite all 46 verses from memory, her voice clear and confident. She didn't stumble once, didn't forget a single word. When she finished, the classroom was silent. Then Ms. Lee started clapping and other students joined in, looking at Jiwoo with new eyes. That was remarkable, Ms. Lee said. I didn't know you had such a gift for memorization. Jiwoo just smiled. If only they knew that her species could remember everything they read or heard, perfectly forever. By lunchtime, people were talking. Jiwoo could hear them whispering as she walked down the hallway. Her hearing was much better than any human's. What's up with Park today? Someone said. Did you see her in physics? And then in lit class. It's like she's a different person. Jiwoo entered the cafeteria and saw her usual lunch group, Minji, Hyejin, and a few other girls she sat with every day. They were nice enough, but Jiwoo had chosen them because they were too busy talking about themselves to notice anything strange about her. Today they noticed. Jiwoo, Minji called out. Everyone's talking about you reciting that whole poem. Since when are you so good at memorizing things? Jiwoo set her lunch tray down. I've always been good at it, she said honestly. I just never showed it before. The girls exchanged glances. Why not? Asked Hyejin. Jiwoo took a bite of her food, considering her answer. I guess I was afraid of standing out. Well, you're definitely standing out today, Minji said with a laugh. As lunch continued, Jiwoo found herself speaking more than she ever had before. She shared opinions on movies, on music, on books, real opinions, not the careful, bland responses she usually gave. The girls seemed surprised but pleased by this new, more talkative Jiwoo. They asked her questions, actually listened to her answers, looked at her with new interest. It felt good. It felt real. After lunch, walking to her next class, Jiwoo turned a corner and bumped into Taehyun, one of the school's basketball players. It was a hard collision. He was walking fast and not looking where he was going. Normally, Jiwoo would have stumbled backward, maybe even fallen down. Humans were knocked off balance easily, and she always made sure to act the same way. But today she didn't move. Taehyun bounced off her as if he'd walked into a wall while Jiwoo stood perfectly still. Whoa, he said, rubbing his shoulder. What are you made of, Park? Jiwoo just smiled. Sorry about that, she said, not sounding sorry at all, and continued walking. By the end of the day, the small acts of rebellion had added up. People were looking at her differently. Teachers were calling on her more. Students who had never spoken to her were suddenly curious. As she walked home, Jiwoo felt lighter than she had in years. The mask she had worn for so long was slipping, and it felt wonderful. But she also knew there would be consequences. Her parents would be angry. The others would be worried. Humans might become suspicious. Still, as she looked up at the sky, at the stars that would soon appear, including the one her real home orbited, Jiwoo made a decision. She was done pretending. Jiwoo arrived at school the next day with a strange feeling in her chest. It was something like excitement mixed with fear. Yesterday, she had let small pieces of her true self show. Today, she planned to reveal even more. Her parents had noticed something different about her at dinner last night. You're quiet, her mother had said, studying her face. Did something happen at school? Nothing important, Jiwoo had lied. It was the first time she had ever lied to her parents. They had always been united in their mission to blend in, to study humans without being discovered. But now Jiwoo was breaking away from that plan. As she walked through the school gates, she noticed people watching her. Word had spread about her strange behavior yesterday. The perfect recitation, the physics correction, the odd collision with Tae-hyun. "Hey, Ji-woo," called Do-hyun, jogging to catch up with her. "That was some impressive stuff yesterday." "Thanks," she said, smiling at him. A real smile, not the careful one she usually wore. "I didn't know you were so smart," he continued, walking beside her. "There's a lot people don't know about me," Ji-woo replied. Do-hyun looked at her curiously. "Like what?" Ji-woo considered the question. How much should she reveal? Not everything, not yet. But something. "I speak 7 languages," she said. This was actually a lie. She spoke 23 Earth languages plus her native tongue. But 7 seemed more believable. Do-hyun's eyes widened. 7, which ones? Korean, English, Mandarin, Spanish, French, Russian, and Arabic, she listed. These were just the ones she used most often. "That's amazing," he said. "How did you learn all those?" "I have a good ear," Ji-woo said simply. It was partly true. Her species had perfect pitch and could distinguish sounds humans couldn't even hear. The first class of the day was mathematics. The teacher, Mr. Park, was explaining a complex problem that most students were struggling to understand. Ji-woo usually pretended to struggle too, even though the math they learned in high school was like simple addition to her. Today, when Mr. Park asked if anyone could solve the problem, Ji-woo raised her hand. "Ji-woo?" Mr. Park seemed surprised. "Would you like to try?" She walked to the board and took the marker. Then, without hesitation, she wrote out the solution in clear, perfect steps. It took her less than a minute to solve a problem that would have challenged most college students. When she finished, the classroom was silent. Mr. Park stared at her work, checking it carefully. "This is correct," he said finally, "and you've used a method I haven't taught yet. Where did you learn this approach?" Ji-woo shrugged. "I read about it somewhere." The truth was that mathematics on her planet was far more advanced than Earth's. What humans considered higher math, her people taught to children. As she returned to her seat, she could feel everyone's eyes on her. Whispers followed her. She could hear them all clearly with her enhanced hearing. "Did you see that? Since when is Park Ji-woo a math genius? Something weird is going on with her." In the next class, history, they were discussing World War II. The teacher mentioned a battle date that Ji-woo knew was wrong. Again, she raised her hand. "Yes, Ji-woo," the teacher said. "The Battle of Midway was June 4th to 7, 1942, not May," she corrected politely. The teacher checked her notes. "You're right. Thank you for the correction." By lunchtime, the whispers had grown louder. Ji-woo sat with her usual group, but today they all seemed to be watching her closely. "So," Minji said, leaning forward, "when did you become a genius?" Ji-woo took a bite of her lunch. "I've always been good at school. I just didn't show it before. But why hide it?" asked Hyejin. "Most people would love to be that smart." "I didn't want to stand out," Ji-woo said honestly. "Well, you're definitely standing out now," Minji replied. "Everyone's talking about you." As if to prove her point, a group of senior students approached their table. They were from the school's science club, led by a tall boy named Jinwoo. "Park Ji-woo," he said. "I'm Jinwoo from the science club. We heard about what you did in math class today." Ji-woo nodded, waiting for him to continue. "We're working on a project for the national science competition, and we could use someone with your skills. Would you be interested in joining our team?" Before today, Ji-woo would have politely declined. Joining a club meant spending more time with humans, increasing the risk of revealing her true nature. But today was different. "What's the project about?" she asked. Jinwoo's face lit up. "We're developing a new algorithm for predicting weather patterns." "It's pretty advanced stuff," Ji-woo smiled. Weather prediction was simple compared to the atmospheric science her people had mastered centuries ago. "Sure," she said. "I'd like to help." Her lunch friends looked shocked. Ji-woo never joined clubs or stayed after school. She always went straight home. After lunch in the hallway, Ji-woo heard someone call her name. It was Tae-hyun, the boy she had collided with yesterday. "Hey, Park," he said, rubbing his shoulder. "You left a bruise, you know." He pulled his collar aside to show a small purple mark. "I'm sorry," Ji-woo said, though she wasn't really. "You should watch where you're going," Tae-hyun frowned. "How did you do that anyway?" "You're half my size, but it felt like hitting a brick wall." Several students nearby were listening now, curious about the confrontation. "I'm stronger than I look," Ji-woo said simply. Prove it, challenged Taehyun. Arm wrestling after school. A small crowd had gathered now. This was exactly the kind of attention Jiwoo had always avoided. A direct physical challenge would reveal too much about her non-human strength, but she was tired of hiding. Fine, she said. After last period in the cafeteria, word spread quickly. By the time physical education class came around, the last period of the day, everyone was talking about the upcoming arm wrestling match. Jiwoo knew she should back out, make an excuse, protect her cover. But something had changed inside her. She was done pretending to be weak. PE class that day was running. The teacher had them do laps around the track. Jiwoo had always been careful to run at an average pace, finishing in the middle of the group. Never too fast, never too slow, just invisible. Today, as the whistle blew and everyone started running, Jiwoo decided to stop holding back. Not completely. At full speed, she could run faster than any human vehicle, but enough to show she was different. She passed the other students easily, her feet barely seeming to touch the ground. Her breathing remained steady, her form perfect. She finished the 2-kilometer course 3 minutes ahead of Junho, the school's track star. The PE teacher stared at his stopwatch in disbelief. Park, that's nearly a national record. Why haven't you been on the track team? Jiwoo shrugged, not even out of breath. I never wanted to compete before. Junho reached the finish line gasping for air. How did you do that? He panted. I stopped holding back, Jiwoo said simply. By the end of PE class, a large crowd had gathered in the cafeteria for the arm wrestling match. Tables had been pushed aside to create a space in the center. Taehyun was already there, rolling up his sleeve, looking confident. Jiwoo walked in and the crowd parted for her. She could hear their whispers, feel their stares. This was the opposite of blending in. This was putting herself directly in the spotlight. Ready to lose, Park? Taehyun called out, flexing his arm. He was one of the strongest boys in school, a star on the basketball team. Jiwoo sat down across from him without a word. They placed their elbows on the table and clasped hands. His hand was much larger than hers, his arm thick with muscle. Someone in the crowd volunteered to referee. Ready, set, go. Taehyun pushed hard immediately, trying to use his weight and surprise to win quickly. Jiwoo's arm didn't move at all. It was like he was pushing against steel. The smile faded from Taehyun's face as he pushed harder. His arm began to shake with effort. Sweat appeared on his forehead. Still, Jiwoo's arm didn't budge. The crowd grew quiet, watching in amazement. After letting Taehyun struggle for a few more seconds, Jiwoo decided to end it. With what felt to her like the gentlest of pressure, she pushed his arm down to the table. The cafeteria erupted in shocked exclamations. Taehyun stared at her, his mouth open in disbelief. How? He asked. That's impossible. Jiwoo stood up. Not for me, she said. As she walked out of the cafeteria, the crowd of students parted again, but this time their faces showed not just curiosity, but something close to fear. She had revealed too much too fast. She had broken the most important rule: don't let humans see how different you really are. On her way home, Jiwoo's phone buzzed with messages. News of her strange abilities was spreading beyond school now. Her parents would find out soon if they hadn't already. For the first time, she felt a flicker of doubt. Was she ready for what would come next? Once the mask started to crack, could she control how much of her true self was revealed? But as she looked up at the darkening sky, at the stars that would soon appear, Jiwoo knew there was no going back. The pretending was over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations, and she was ready for them all. Jiwoo knew she was in trouble the moment she opened her front door. Her parents were waiting for her in the living room, their faces serious. Her father held his phone, showing a video of her arm wrestling match with Taehyun. Someone had recorded it and shared it online. Explain this, her father said, his voice quiet but firm. Jiwoo set down her backpack. I'm tired of hiding, she said simply. Her mother stood up, her eyes wide with worry. Do you understand what you've done? This video has thousands of views already. People are asking questions. Good, Jiwoo said. I want them to ask questions. I want them to see who I really am. Her parents exchanged worried looks. This was their worst fear. Exposure. We need to leave, her father decided. Pack only what you need. We'll contact the others and activate the emergency plan. The emergency plan. Jiwoo had heard about it her whole life. If they were ever discovered, they would disappear, move to another country, take new names, start over. Always hiding, always running? No, Jiwoo said firmly. I'm not running away. Her parents stared at her in shock. No one in their family had ever defied the rules before. This isn't a discussion, her father said. The safety of our mission. What about my life? Jiwoo interrupted. I've spent 16 years pretending to be something I'm not. I'm done hiding. Her mother approached her, placing gentle hands on her shoulders. Jiwoo, humans aren't ready to know about us. They fear what they don't understand. Then let them understand, Jiwoo argued. How will they ever accept different beings if we keep hiding from them? Her parents couldn't change her mind. After hours of arguing, they reached an uneasy compromise. Jiwoo would go to school tomorrow, but she would try to explain away her strange abilities. She would say she had been training in secret, that she was just unusually strong and smart. No mention of being from another planet. Jiwoo agreed, but in her heart she had already decided. Tomorrow would be the day she stopped pretending completely. She barely slept that night. Her mind was filled with thoughts of what might happen. Would her classmates fear her? Would they accept her? Would government agents come to take her away for study, as happened in the human movies? Morning came too quickly. Jiwoo got ready for school, but today she made a bold choice. She left her special contacts on her dresser. For the first time, she would go to school with her natural eyes, violet and slightly glowing. Her parents gasped when they saw her. Jiwoo, you can't, her mother pleaded. I have to, Jiwoo replied. It's time. The walk to school felt longer than usual. People on the street stared at her eyes, some stopping to watch her pass. A child pointed and asked his mother why that girl's eyes were glowing. Jiwoo kept walking, her head held high. At the school gates, a crowd had already gathered. Word of yesterday's events had spread, and everyone wanted to see the girl who had outrun the track star and defeated the strongest boy in arm wrestling. Do-hyun was the first to approach her. Then he saw her eyes and stopped in his tracks. Jiwoo, your eyes, he said, his voice a mix of fear and wonder. Yes, she said. This is what they really look like. The crowd grew silent, all eyes on her strange glowing ones. What are you? Someone finally asked. Jiwoo took a deep breath. This was the moment. Once she spoke the truth, there would be no going back. I'm not human, she said clearly so everyone could hear. My parents and I come from a planet that orbits a star about 20 light years from Earth. We've been living among you for 16 years, studying your culture and society. The silence that followed was complete. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, as if a spell had broken, everyone started talking at once. That's impossible. Is this some kind of joke? Aliens aren't real. Look at her eyes. Principal Kang pushed through the crowd, his face stern. Park Jiwoo, come to my office immediately. The rest of you, get to class. No one moved. The students were too shocked, too curious to leave. I'll come to your office, Jiwoo told the principal. But I want to speak to everyone first. They deserve to know the truth. Principal Kang looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Jiwoo's glowing eyes made him step back. I know this is hard to believe, Jiwoo continued, addressing the crowd, but look at me. Look at what I can do. To prove her point, Jiwoo walked to a nearby bench, a heavy stone bench that would normally take 3 or 4 strong adults to lift. She picked it up with one hand, holding it above her head as easily as if it were made of paper. Gasps and cries of shock filled the air. Some students backed away in fear. Others pulled out their phones to record. I'm not here to harm anyone, Jiwoo said, gently setting the bench down. My people are peaceful. We're scientists and explorers. We came to Earth to learn, not to conquer. Why are you telling us this now? Asked Minji, who had pushed to the front of the crowd. Because I'm tired of living a lie, Jiwoo answered honestly. Because I want to be myself. And because I think humans are ready to know they're not alone in the universe. Principal Kang finally found his voice. This is beyond my authority. I need to call the education board, the police, maybe the government. I understand, Jiwoo said calmly. But first let me answer their questions. They deserve that much. The principal hesitated, then nodded. What else could he do? This situation was unlike anything in the school handbook. For the next hour in the school courtyard, Jiwoo answered questions from her classmates and teachers. They gathered around her, fear slowly giving way to curiosity. What's your planet like? Asked Hyejin. It's smaller than Earth with 2 moons, Jiwoo explained. The gravity is stronger, which is why I'm so strong here. The days are longer and the air has more oxygen. Do you eat the same food as us? Someone else asked. Yes, though some Earth foods taste strange to me. I love spicy food. We don't have anything like it on my planet. Can you do other things? Besides being strong? Taehyun asked, still rubbing his arm from yesterday's defeat. Jiwoo nodded. I can see in the dark. I can hear sounds humans can't hear. I can remember everything I read or see perfectly. Are there others like you on Earth? This question came from Mr. Kim, the physics teacher. Yes, Jiwoo admitted. My parents and a few others scattered around your world. We keep in touch, but we live separately to avoid detection. Until now, Mr. Kim said. Until now, Jiwoo agreed. As the questions continued, Jiwoo could see the change happening. The initial fear was fading. In its place was something she hadn't expected. Acceptance. Not from everyone. Some still looked at her with suspicion or fear, but from many. Do-hyun, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke.
Why did you decide to tell us?
Why now? Jiwoo looked at him, her violet eyes meeting his brown ones. Because I watched humans talk about being true to themselves, about the importance of honesty and authenticity. It made me realize I wanted those things too. But you're not human, someone pointed out. No, Jiwoo agreed, but I still have feelings. I still want to be accepted for who I am, not for the mask I wear. By midday, news vans had arrived at the school. Someone had called the media. Principal Kang had also called the authorities, and men in dark suits were now walking through the school gates. Jiwoo knew what was coming. Her parents had warned her about this. If humans discovered their true nature, government agencies would get involved. She might be taken away for questioning, maybe even for study, but strangely she wasn't afraid. As she watched the officials approach, she felt calm. The truth was out now. Whatever happened next, she would face it as her real self. Jiwoo, Do-hyun said, stepping close to her as the men in suits drew near. Are you going to be okay? She smiled at him, her violet eyes glowing softly in the midday sun. I don't know, but for the first time since I came to Earth, I feel free. The government officials reached her, their faces serious but not hostile. Miss Park, one of them said, we need you to come with us. There are people who want to speak with you. Jiwoo nodded. I understand, but I have one request. The man raised an eyebrow. What is it? My parents, Jiwoo said. They should be part of this conversation too. They've been on Earth longer than I have. The officials exchanged glances, then nodded. We'll arrange it. As Jiwoo prepared to leave with them, her classmates watched in silence. Then, to her surprise, Minji stepped forward and hugged her. Come back to school when you can, she said. Alien or not, you're still our friend. Others nodded in agreement. Even Taehyun gave her a respectful nod. Jiwoo felt something warm in her chest, an emotion her people rarely expressed but that humans valued greatly. Belonging. I'll try, she promised. As she walked away with the officials, Jiwoo knew that her life, and possibly the relationship between Earth and other worlds, had changed forever. All because she had stopped pretending at school. And somehow that felt exactly right. The government facility was nothing like Jiwoo had imagined. Based on human movies, she had expected dark rooms, harsh lights, and cold metal tables. Instead, she sat in a comfortable chair in a bright room with windows. There were plants in the corners and paintings on the walls. Her parents sat beside her, their faces tense but composed. Like Jiwoo, they had removed their special contacts, revealing their natural violet eyes. The three of them faced a panel of 5 humans, 2 women and 3 men in formal clothes. Thank you for coming voluntarily, said the woman in the center. Her name tag read Dr. Han, National Science Agency. We have many questions, as I'm sure you understand. Jiwoo's father nodded. We expected this day would come eventually, though not quite like this. He glanced at Jiwoo with a mix of worry and pride. How many of your kind are on Earth? Asked one of the men. 12, Jiwoo's mother answered. 3 families and 3 individual researchers. We're scattered across different countries. And your purpose here? Dr. Han asked. Research and observation, Jiwoo's father explained. We're scientists. Our world is interested in peaceful contact with other intelligent species, but we needed to understand humans first. By living among us in secret, another panel member said, his tone slightly accusatory. Yes, Jiwoo's father admitted. We believe direct contact too soon might cause fear or panic. Like in your movies about alien invasions, Jiwoo added. Dr. Han smiled slightly at this. And yet, Jiwoo, you chose to reveal yourself. Why? All eyes turned to Jiwoo. This was the question she had been asking herself since yesterday. I was tired of hiding, she said simply. Humans talk about being true to yourself, about honesty and authenticity. I wanted those things too. Even though it risked your mission? Dr. Han asked. Jiwoo nodded. Even then, the questioning continued for hours. The panel wanted to know about their home planet, their technology, their biology. Jiwoo and her parents answered honestly, though they avoided sharing information about their most advanced technologies. Some knowledge, they explained, humans weren't ready for yet. Your civilization is young, Jiwoo's father said gently. You've only had electricity for a short time. Some technologies need to be discovered gradually, not given all at once. This answer didn't please all the panel members, but they seemed to accept it. By evening, a decision had been reached. The existence of aliens on Earth would not be hidden from the public. Jiwoo's revelation at school had spread too far for that. But the government would control how the information was shared. Jiwoo and her parents would not be held against their will, but they would need to cooperate with ongoing research and interviews. And school? Jiwoo asked. Can I go back? The panel members looked at each other. Is that what you want? Dr. Han asked, sounding surprised. Yes, Jiwoo said firmly. I still want to learn about humans, and now I can do it honestly. After some discussion, they agreed. Jiwoo could return to Hanbit Academy with certain conditions. Government representatives would be present, special security would be arranged, and Jiwoo would need to be careful about demonstrating her abilities. 3 days after her revelation, Jiwoo returned to school. The campus had changed in her absence. News vans lined the street outside. Security guards stood at the gates, and a special area had been set up in the auditorium for press conferences. But the biggest change was how people looked at her. As Jiwoo walked through the hallways, students and teachers stared openly. Some looked afraid, others excited. No one ignored her anymore. Jiwoo, called a familiar voice. It was Do-hyun pushing through the crowd to reach her. You're back! She smiled, genuinely happy to see him. I'm back. What happened? Did they experiment on you? Are you okay? The questions tumbled out of him. I'm fine, she assured him. They just asked a lot of questions. My parents are still meeting with scientists, but they let me come back to school. More students gathered around them, all with questions of their own. Is it true your spaceship is hidden under the city? Can you read minds? Do aliens really abduct people for experiments? Jiwoo laughed at the last question. No, we don't abduct humans. Those stories aren't about my people. So there are other aliens visiting Earth? Someone asked, eyes wide. I don't know, Jiwoo answered honestly. The universe is very big. It would be strange if we were the only ones exploring it. Principal Kang appeared, looking tired but determined. Everyone, give Jiwoo some space. She's here to learn, just like before. Let's try to keep things as normal as possible. Normal. The word almost made Jiwoo laugh. Nothing would be normal again. Her first class was mathematics. As she entered the room, the chatter died down. All eyes turned to her. Mr. Park, the math teacher, cleared his throat. Welcome back, Jiwoo, he said. We're continuing with calculus today. I assume that's still something you need to learn? Actually, Jiwoo said, my people learn calculus when we're very young. But I'd be happy to help explain it to the class if that would be useful. Mr. Park blinked, then nodded slowly. That might be educational for everyone. And so Jiwoo found herself at the front of the class, explaining complex mathematical concepts in simple terms. She used examples from both Earth and her home planet, showing how the same principles applied across the universe. The students watched in fascination. Even those who usually slept through math class were paying attention. By the end of the period, hands were shooting up with questions, not just about math, but about how mathematics was used on her world. Do you use math differently than we do? Asked a boy named Sunwoo. The principles are the same, Jiwoo explained, but we apply them more widely. For example, we use mathematical models to predict emotions and social interactions. You can calculate feelings? Minji asked, sounding shocked. Not exactly, Jiwoo said, but we can model patterns and probabilities. It helps us understand other species. In science class, a similar scene played out. The teacher had planned a lesson on cellular biology, but it quickly turned into a discussion about the differences between human cells and those of Jiwoo's species. Our cells can repair damage more efficiently, Jiwoo explained. That's why we live longer than humans. How long? Someone asked. About 300 of your Earth years, Jiwoo said. The classroom erupted in amazed exclamations. By lunchtime, the novelty of having an alien classmate had not worn off. As Jiwoo entered the cafeteria, conversation stopped. Then, to her surprise, Minji waved her over to their usual table. Saved you a seat, Minji called out. Jiwoo sat down, touched by this simple act of acceptance. So, Yejin said, leaning forward, now that you don't have to pretend, what Earth food do you actually like? And don't say everything just to be polite. Jiwoo laughed. I really love spicy food, especially tteokbokki. We don't have anything spicy on my planet. And what do you hate? Asked another girl. Chocolate, Jiwoo admitted. It tastes like dirt to me. The girls gasped in mock horror, and for a moment it felt almost normal. Just friends talking about food preferences, except one of them was from another planet. After lunch in the hallway, Jiwoo encountered Taehyun. He had been avoiding her since the arm wrestling match, clearly embarrassed by his defeat. Hey, he said awkwardly. So, you're really an alien? Yes, Jiwoo confirmed. That explains a lot, he said, rubbing his shoulder. No hard feelings about the arm wrestling. I mean, it wasn't really a fair match. True, Jiwoo agreed. But you challenged me. Taehyun nodded, then asked the question she could see had been bothering him. Could you have hurt me? If you wanted to? Jiwoo considered the question seriously. Yes, she said finally. But I would never want to. My people value peace. We don't use our strength to harm others. Taehyun seemed relieved. Good to know. As the day continued, Jiwoo noticed something interesting happening. The initial shock and fear were giving way to curiosity. Students who had never spoken to her before were asking questions, not just about her alien nature, but about her as a person. Do you miss your home planet? Asked a quiet girl named Sora during history class. Sometimes, Jiwoo admitted. I was very young when we came to Earth, so my memories of home are faint. But I miss the color of the sky. It's more purple than blue, and the sound of the wind through the crystal forests. Crystal forests? Several students asked at once. Jiwoo smiled. Our plants evolve differently. Many have crystalline structures instead of leaves. When the wind blows through them, they make music. That sounds beautiful, Sora said softly. It is, Jiwoo agreed. Maybe someday humans will visit and hear it for themselves. The idea of humans traveling to her world seemed to excite everyone. The history lesson was forgotten, as students peppered her with questions about space travel, her planet's location, and whether humans would be welcome there. By the end of the school day, Jiwoo felt both exhausted and exhilarated. Being honest, being herself, took less energy than pretending, but answering so many questions, being the center of attention, was tiring in a different way. As she prepared to leave, Do-hyun caught up with her at the gate. So, he said, same time tomorrow? Jiwoo smiled. Yes, same time tomorrow. Walking home, escorted by government agents who kept a respectful distance, Jiwoo reflected on the day. It hadn't been perfect. Some students still looked at her with fear. Some teachers seemed uncomfortable having her in class, and the constant attention was sometimes overwhelming. But for the first time since arriving on Earth, Jiwoo felt like herself. Not a copy of a human girl, not a careful pretender, but herself. A young woman from another world, trying to build a bridge between two species, and that felt like the beginning of something important. 1 month had passed since Jiwoo revealed her true identity to the world. In that time, much had changed, both at Hanbit Academy and beyond. The initial media frenzy had calmed somewhat. News vans no longer camped outside the school gates, though reporters still appeared occasionally, hoping for interviews. The government security team remained, but they had become familiar faces, almost part of the school community. Jiwoo's parents had become public figures too. As the official representatives of their species, they met with world leaders and scientists explaining their mission and answering questions about their home world. They had even addressed the United Nations, their violet eyes glowing under the bright lights as they spoke of peace and cooperation between planets. For Jiwoo, life had found a new rhythm. different from before but increasingly comfortable. She walked through the school gates on a crisp autumn morning, nodding to the security guards who greeted her by name. Students no longer stopped to stare when she passed. Her glowing violet eyes, once shocking, had become a familiar sight at Hanbit Academy. "Morning, Jiwoo," called Do-hyun, jogging to catch up with her. Over the past month, he had become one of her closest friends. Unlike some who were drawn to her celebrity status, Do-hyun seemed genuinely interested in who she was as a person. "Good morning," she replied, smiling. "Ready for the physics test?" "Not really," he admitted. "The quantum mechanics section is confusing." "I can help you study at lunch," Jiwoo offered. "It's not that complicated once you understand the basic principles," says the alien whose people probably invented quantum physics, Do-hyun teased. Jiwoo laughed. "We didn't invent it. We just discovered it earlier than humans." They walked together to their first class, chatting about normal teenage things, the upcoming school festival, a new movie, weekend plans. This was the most surprising change for Jiwoo. How quickly the extraordinary had become ordinary. Her first class was literature, where they were studying poetry. Ms. Lee had asked each student to write a poem about their personal experience. When it was Jiwoo's turn to share, the class grew quiet, attentive. "My poem is called Two Worlds," Jiwoo said, standing at the front of the class. She read in a clear voice. "Violet eyes that once stayed hidden now reflect both suns I know. One world of birth, one world of living, both now pieces of my soul. No longer split between two selves. No mask to wear, no lies to tell. Standing whole beneath new skies, finding home in truth's release." When she finished, the class was silent for a moment. Then they applauded, many nodding in understanding. Ms. Lee wiped a tear from her eye. "That was beautiful, Jiwoo," the teacher said. "Thank you for sharing something so personal." Jiwoo returned to her seat, feeling a warm glow that had nothing to do with her alien biology. Being accepted for who she truly was, that feeling never got old. In science class, things had changed dramatically. Mr. Kim now regularly asked Jiwoo to co-teach certain topics, especially those related to astronomy and physics. Today they were discussing the solar system. "Jiwoo, perhaps you could share some information about your home system," Mr. Kim suggested. Jiwoo stood and walked to the front of the class. Using the digital display, she showed images that her parents had provided to Earth scientists, pictures of her home planet with its 2 moons and reddish sun. "Our star is smaller than your sun," she explained. "What you would call a red dwarf. Our planet orbits closer to it than Earth does to your sun, but because the star is cooler, our climate is similar to Earth's." "What about the other planets in your system?" asked a student named Junho. "We have 7 planets total," Jiwoo said. 3 are rocky like Earth, including my home world. The other 4 are gas giants, similar to Jupiter but smaller. Are there other intelligent species besides yours?" Another student asked. Jiwoo nodded. "Yes, one other. They evolved on the 3rd planet in our system. They're very different from us, more like your Earth octopuses than humanoids. We've been in contact with them for thousands of years." The class erupted in excited questions. The idea of octopus-like aliens fascinated everyone. "Will they visit Earth too?" someone asked. "Probably not soon," Jiwoo explained. "They don't travel in space much. They prefer to stay in their oceans." After science class came lunch. This had become Jiwoo's favorite time of day. She sat with her friends, Minji, Hyejin, Do-hyun, and others who had accepted her true identity. But today there was a new addition to their table. "This is my cousin Hanul," Jiwoo announced as a tall boy with the same violet eyes set his lunch tray down. "He just transferred to Hanbit Academy." Her friends stared in surprise. Another alien at their school. "Hello," Hanul said, his Korean perfect but with a slight accent Jiwoo had worked hard to eliminate from her own speech. "It's nice to meet you all. Your cousin?" Minji asked, looking between them. "So your families decided—" "After I revealed our presence, the others had to make choices," Jiwoo explained. "Hanul's family decided to stop hiding too. They moved here last week. Are all of your people coming out of hiding now?" asked Hyejin. Hanul shook his head. "Not all. Some still believe it's too soon for full contact. But after seeing how humans reacted to Jiwoo, mostly with curiosity instead of fear, more of us are considering it." The lunch table buzzed with questions for Hanul. Was his experience on Earth similar to Jiwoo's? Did he have the same abilities? What did he think of human food? Jiwoo watched with a smile as her cousin navigated the questions. She remembered how overwhelming it had felt at first, being the center of so much attention, but Hanul seemed to be handling it well. So, Do-hyun said, turning to Jiwoo, you promised to help me with quantum mechanics. While the others continued talking with Hanul, Jiwoo explained the complex physics concepts to Do-hyun in simple terms. She had discovered she had a talent for teaching, for making difficult ideas clear and understandable. You know, Do-hyun said after grasping a particularly tricky concept, you should be a teacher when you grow up. You're really good at explaining things. Jiwoo considered this. Maybe I will. A teacher or perhaps a diplomat between our worlds. Ambassador Park, Do-hyun said with a grin. It has a nice ring to it. After lunch, Jiwoo had a special appointment. She excused herself from her friends and made her way to the auditorium, where a group of elementary school students waited. This was a new program. Younger students from schools around the city could visit Hanbit Academy to meet Jiwoo and learn about her world. The children's eyes widened as Jiwoo walked onto the stage, her violet eyes glowing softly. Hello, everyone, she said warmly. My name is Jiwoo Park, and I come from a planet called Luria, 20 light-years from Earth. A forest of small hands shot up immediately. Jiwoo pointed to a little girl in the front row. Do you have pets on your planet? The child asked. Jiwoo smiled. Children always ask the most interesting questions. Yes, we do. They're not like your dogs and cats, though. Our most common pets are small flying creatures, a bit like your butterflies but more intelligent. They can learn to recognize people and even carry small messages. Cool, several children exclaimed. Do you miss your home? Asked a serious-looking boy. The question touched Jiwoo. Sometimes, she answered honestly. But Earth has become my home too. I have friends here, school, favorite places. Home isn't just where you were born, it's where you feel you belong. The children nodded, some looking thoughtful. After the elementary school visit, Jiwoo had one more special activity before the end of the school day. She made her way to the science lab, where the school's new interplanetary exchange club was meeting. This club had been Jinwoo's idea, the senior who had invited Jiwoo to join the science club before her revelation. Now, instead of just working on Earth science projects, the club focused on sharing knowledge between worlds. Jiwoo, Jinwoo called as she entered. Perfect timing. We were just discussing the crystal communication device your parents showed the scientists. The club members, 15 students with strong interests in science and space, gathered around as Jiwoo explained how her people used crystalline structures to store and transmit information. It's similar to your computer technology in purpose, she said, but uses quantum properties of certain crystals instead of electronics. Could humans develop this technology? Asked a girl named Yuna. Eventually, Jiwoo said. The principles aren't beyond human science. It's just a different approach. As the club meeting continued, Jiwoo felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was why her people had come to Earth. To learn, yes, but also to share. To help humans see new possibilities. After school, Jiwoo met her parents at the gate. They had come to pick her up for a special dinner with government officials. As they walked to the car, her father put an arm around her shoulders. How was school today? He asked, just like any human parent might. Good, Jiwoo replied. Hanul seems to be adjusting well. Her mother smiled. The path you chose, revealing yourself, it wasn't what we planned. But I think it may have been the right one after all. Jiwoo looked back at the school building where her friends were still visible in the windows, some waving goodbye. It was right for me, she said. I couldn't keep pretending. As their car pulled away, Jiwoo thought about how much had changed in just 1 month. The world now knew that humans weren't alone in the universe. Scientists were sharing knowledge with her people. Children were growing up with the idea that beings from other worlds could be friends, not enemies. And she, Jiwoo Park from the planet Luria, had found a way to be truly herself while building bridges between two worlds. All because she had stopped pretending at school. That night, as she looked up at the stars from her bedroom window, Jiwoo could see the faint red dot that was her home star. It seemed both very far away and somehow closer than before. We're connected now, she whispered to the distant light. No more hiding. No more pretending. And in that moment, with one foot in each world, Jiwoo felt completely whole for the first time in her life. The mask was gone forever, and in its place was something far more valuable: truth, acceptance, and the beginning of a new chapter for both her worlds.